Because these people are just seeing me for me. There's no preconceived notions of who this tall black girl is. Even if you think life is great here, it can be so much better in a place where you can truly be you. Trust me.
We barely get to think about ourselves as black people. We barely tend to feel the need to wear the black hat. For a long time, I never used to understand what it means by countries, black girls, black women should not visit. I kind of would say I was not relating to that. And the point that has led me to even embrace the discussion about black people, and even me calling myself black, is welcome to this channel where we unite different communities of different black people, because I believe in unity is where we can find solution to some of our problems as the black people. When I say black, I mean the Caribbeans, I mean Africans, I mean black Americans, I mean the diasporans, those that have traveled, immigrated, expats. As long as you look like me or anywhere close to like me, then you get what I mean. So today we're going to be talking about why black Americans are moving to Jamaica. Yes, and we're going to discuss more about how the move affects the people that you move to, and also how it affects the people that are moving, because I'm going to base this on how there was black Americans moving to Ghanaians and how that impacted them as well as the country.
Every single black person needs to visit a black country. Go there, and not to the little touristy areas. Go to the black areas, real areas, and see what life could be like, especially if you're from the US, like myself. So I grew up going to Jamaica every year with my family, and it was life-changing for me as a child to see black business owners, black restaurant owners, black people in commercials, black people on billboards, black politician, all black everything. It was so beautiful and so inspiring. For the first time in my life, I was seen. I took off my blackness and put on my humanness. I wasn't just Jessica the black girl. I was just Jessica. And if you've never experienced what life is like outside of your blackness, outside of your exterior, you'll be surprised to know how much freedom there is in just being you. I've been in many social spaces where I walk in, I'm representing as the only black person there. And you have to be very mindful and cognizant of everything you do, everything you say, how you walk, how you dress, because there are so many stereotypes and stigmas about you already that you need to walk in on your A game. You don't realize how much all of these things are playing on your psyche, on what you think is possible, on what life could be, what normalcy is. You don't always have to be the other. Growing up in the US, going to school, it was
I fully agree with whatever she's saying, especially with a lot of the interaction that I've had with black Americans that I have met as they're coming to visit Africa, and how it changes their perspective and view of the world and the view of themselves. Now, we as Africans are a very blessed nation, I would say, in this perspective. We barely get to think about ourselves as black people. We barely tend to feel the need to wear the black hat. For a long time, I never used to understand what it means by countries, black girls, black women should not visit. I kind of would say I was not relating to that. And the point that has led me to even embrace the discussion about black people, and even me calling myself black, is the fact that now I am married to a black American. And what that means is at some point I'm going to for sure need to experience a perspective of me being a black person. And on the same, then it just does us good by educating ourselves and even informing ourselves on how we can embrace this matter better. But one thing that for sure can never be taken away from me has to be my identity based on who I am and the color and stuff like this. So I am with her on encouraging every black person, not necessarily to move, but to get a chance to experience black only countries. In that case, I mean like the sub-Saharan countries. In that case, I mean the Caribbeans. Whether you know where your history comes from or whether you know who are your ancestors, it is this should actually be definitely one of those things where you get to appreciate everything, people just being themselves, and you don't have to think about, did I get treated like this because that was racism, do these people not love me or do they love me. You will definitely experience some form of, let's say, difference of being a foreigner in a foreign country, but for sure you'll get to appreciate seeing, as she's saying, excellence in the black community. You will see women winning, you will see us succeeding, you will see us leading, you will see us in political spaces, you will see us in the army, like everywhere basically. And for sure it will change how you perceive life. Yeah, and one thing that I cannot fail to remember, this time I was hanging out with my husband here, and after enjoying a delicious meal in this restaurant, I'm sorry I keep exposing him, but it's just one of these things. And for sure he's been to like African countries and the Caribbean countries for a long time, but seeing him being so appreciative of, wow, this restaurant has so many black people, and then for a second it hits you, oh, I'm not in America, I'm actually in an African country. That's like such a big deal, you know, like that's, it's a recognition that you can actually live life in a place that your color has nothing to do necessarily with you, or for a very small percentage will you remember about your blackness. And also you get a chance to pull down all these shields that we have for ourselves, you know, like these shields of like the hood, these shields of liberal or conservative, of that was racism, or that was discrimination based on my color, or that was an Oreo behavior. All these things do not exist here in Africa, which is a very big blessing, you know. And for sure, I'm joining up with her, and I'm like, travel, 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 travel to black communities and get to experience what black community is all about.
The other. Growing up in the US, going to school, it was so hard to make friends because people are afraid of me. People think I'm gonna act a certain way or be a certain way. I went to Jamaica. I would be there for 5 days and leave with 10 friends because these people are just seeing me for me. There's no preconceived notions of who this tall black girl is. Even if you think life is great here, it can be so much better in a place where you can truly be you. Trust me. I don't know if I'm raising my kids in Jamaica or if I'm retiring in Jamaica, because I have to live there for at least a year because it is so fantastic. And if I have children, I also want them to see all the possibilities life can be as a person of color.
Okay, my biggest agreement has to be from a place of the future, you know, like you could have accepted for yourself, like you have accepted whatever mentality that is for you and stuff like this. But it reminds me of someone who ever talked and said, a very popular person said that they will bring their kids in Africa so that they can appreciate the poverty level is not the same, so that they can see how privileged they are. And as much as that is a good area that needs correction and stuff like this, and of course, yeah, he even did apologize for saying this, but the thing is, with right motives, then you get a very good perspective of how life can be and how much more that you're able and capable of bringing to life. The aspect of believing in yourself and things like this, knowing who you are, where you come from, where your people, how your people look like, how they interact, how they reason, how they think, beyond all the stereotypes that are out there. So for sure, I am joining you, girl, when it comes to like, especially for like our future kids. It is definitely compulsory, our responsibility to first of all teach our kids where we're coming from and who we are and our people, and even teach them the ways of blacks, as well as showing them possibilities of what we can do. And on the same note, I was chit-chatting with some Kenyans that were talking about how after they moved to America, or after you move to America, because they moved to America, and then you cannot when you've moved to, let's say, America, you cannot raise your kids in your African ways. As much as in your African ways there's like very good values for them to take up, there's confidence in terms of identity, there's almost no discrimination, especially in issues to do with like race and stuff like this. But the concept was they will actually just grow up as Americans, so your only responsibility is to teach them your ways, bring them to their land to experience these things, show them as much as you can, and then after that they can make their own decision. And at that, we won't be to blame for all this. So if my role on this video is to tell you to book that flight if you're thinking about booking that flight, if me on this video, my role was to tell you, hey, you've been procrastinating for a long time, or you've been thinking, is it Europe or Africa, is it Europe or the Caribbean, please, first of all, try out Black People, then give it a try. Then you can come tell us how your experience was, what you learned, the transformation that you experienced. And for sure, I can assure you, I have seen it, I have had testimonies, and for sure it will work for you as well. Whew, let's hear what the comments have to say. Okay, this one is emotional. I was in Jamaica recently, and while I was in an island green restaurant, I look around and saw my Black sisters and brothers, and tears came into my eyes because I was so overwhelmed with the fact that I fit in with Jamaicans. I was not a Black among whites. I was back with my Black people. It was such an indescribable feeling, just joy and inner peace. I've been to Ghana, and as we traveled around, I just kept thinking, this looks and feels just like Jamaica. Same people, same culture, some of the same words and ways of doing things. People on the streets, hinglers, people selling food and drinks on top of their heads, people cooking food on their streets to sell, huge markets with people selling everything under the sun. Hot sun and beautiful Black people everywhere. Mothers and babies, fathers and sons, elderly people, walking not afraid of being robbed like in the US. Just Black people being people, going about their lives and being free. I loved it. I've been to Jamaica about 15 to 20 times. My first trip was in 1980s. I went by myself for a 3-day holiday. I stayed in Montego Bay, but I visited Ocho Rios and I went as far as Negril. The roads were bad at that time, but it was adventure to me and I instantly fell in love. I live in a predominantly Black city, but I worked in a very white industry. Lots of subtle racism and attitudes, but I stuck it out. I remember riding into Ohio and crossing that little bridge and just seeing Black people everywhere, going about their business and just walking and hustling, and I had an almost religious revelation. A feeling came over me and I fell instantly in love with the people, culture, food, and music. All this Jamaican, and I started reading Jamaican history books, and learning about Jamaican culture, patios. I came back about 4 years later and stayed in Ochi. Went all over as much as I could, came back again, this time to Kingston, visited the museum and art gallery because I love Jamaican art. My house is full of Jamaican art, sculpture, verses, poetry, paintings, etc. All over downtown Kingston, Marcus Garvey home or office, and the Ward Theatre. Came back again, brought my best friend, came back again, brought my sister, came back next time, brought my brother. Just went back last month to take my sister and her granddaughter to her 18th birthday. She loved it. Needless to say, I visited Jamaica every year, sometimes twice if I can swing it. It's the only place where I feel free, and I feel free to be a Black person. I'm trying so hard to decide if I want to move there permanently. I'd love to go and not come back to the US. I'm one of those people who cry on the plane on the way back home because I don't want to go home. I'm retired and I know this is my last year here in the States. I hate the winters. I'm just tired of the home repairs and maintenance. I'd love to move either Ochi or Negril or further west. I don't need to be on the beach. A little place with a nice view would be my preference. I think that's like the ultimate testimony of why you should give it a try if you're considering. Yeah, just be open-minded. And on that, on the same note, I just felt I look forward to the day. Maybe let me speak it out to the world so it can happen. As my manifestation, then we'll come back to this video. I look forward to the day that my American family will be able to come and experience Africa. Yeah, that will be a dream come true. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching and welcome to our Black community world. Subscribe and see you on the next one.